The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, November 2024. Thanks for joining me and for another episode of the Yaron Brook Show where we're going to cover the news today. It's been a while, 4 days without shows. I know some of you are going through withdrawal. Hopefully Michael's here. He was wondering if there was going to be a show today. He seemed a little antsy. But a lot of news to cover. I was in Austin, Texas for a seminar, 4 long days, so I am exhausted. So we'll see how it goes today. But we will be covering kind of the news from the last few days. A lot's been going on, so we'll run through a lot of topics, and we'll see what kind of questions you guys have. Reminder: you get to ask questions. That means you get to shape the show. You get to determine what I talk about by using the super chat. So, you've had 4 days without shows to save up your money. Ask away. And by doing so, support the show, value for value. The trader principle. We are traders after all, or at least view that as a virtue. All right. Ian says 8 topics. That's right. 8 topics. Now, some of them are pretty quick. Just kind of update you, because I know some of you don't listen to the news, don't read newspapers, don't watch television news. You get all your news from here. So some of this is just quick updates. Some of it is more in depth. We will see. Let's start with Ukraine. So last week it was revealed that Putin-loving Witkoff, who is a real piece of work. Somebody who met Putin and told Tucker Carlson earlier this year, I like him. I thought he was straight up with me. I don't regard him as a bad guy. This is Putin, the guy who kills his opponents, poisons people, kills his political poisons, has Russians falling out of windows constantly. This is the guy who kills journalists and has been engaged in a war in Europe. First ground war, really major war in Europe since World War II. Since 2014 has been engaged in war with Ukraine. That Putin, the authoritarian thug Putin, the dictator of Russia Putin, that Putin, Witkoff, bright, real estate, another real estate developer, bright real estate developer says he does not regard him as a bad guy. I'm curious. I'm just curious. Just asking questions. That's all I'm doing. I wonder who Witkoff considers a bad guy. Who does Witkoff consider a bad guy? That would be interesting. Who doesn't he like? Probably people I like, and probably people I think are good guys, would be my guess. Anyway, Witkoff, and one of the aides to President Putin, spent some time in Miami over the last few weeks and wrote up a 28-point peace plan. A 28-point peace plan that basically gives Russia almost everything it wants. It gives us all of the Donbass. It gives them a cap on the size of the Ukrainian military. It gives them Ukraine never joining NATO again. It gives them all the land that they've occupied since 2014. It becomes Russian. Ukraine gives it up. It gives them a great staging ground for the next assault sometime in the future in Ukraine. It basically, Russia gets everything. Except the only thing that Russia gave in this proposal was a very ambiguous, weak, unspecified security guarantee by the United States and Europe. A security guarantee that, by the way, the United States gave Ukraine in 1994 when Ukraine gave up its nuclear missiles. So we all know what security guarantees are worth. So this is the plan Witkoff and the Russian came up with. 28 points. 28 points. Basically, it is a surrender document for Ukraine. And it was made public last week and presented to the Ukrainians last week. And it was all done in a very rushed, quick manner. And it was leaked very quickly. And of course, President Trump came out and said, "Oh, I agree completely. This is great. And I demand that Zelensky reply to this by Thanksgiving," basically. Zelensky freaked out, basically went on Ukrainian TV saying, this is the toughest decision we, the Ukrainian people, will ever have to make. It's, this is, our allies are banning us. Basically, Trump said, if you don't agree to this, we will stop supporting you and potentially release Russia from sanctions. That was Friday. And Trump came out with one of his true social, I don't know what you call it, when you throw up on paper. Anyway. Basically said, blamed Ukraine for starting the war, and went after the Ukrainians. I mean, he never says. I mean, it's stunning. Historians will write about this, and they will be shocked by the fact that Americans just rolled and just went along with this. Trump never says a bad word about Putin. Never blames Putin for the aggression. Never blamed Putin for anything. Putin is the good guy. Or let's see, I've got Tucker Carlson's quote. Tucker Carlson said, when he was talking to Michael Knowles, and Michael Knowles had a good chuckle about this, didn't disagree. I'm not moving to Russia, but Putin has been the most effective leader in my lifetime. Effective? Russians are poor. Their country is, staggeringly in a horrible situation. Over 1.5 million young Russians have been either maimed or killed on the battlefield. What else has happened? Did I say Russia was poor? Standard of living has been declining. Quality of life is horrible. Poland is so much richer than Russia. Czech Republic is so much richer than Russia on a per capita basis. Effective? Effective at what? At stealing from his country. Putin has billions and billions, or hundreds of billions probably, in a bank account in Switzerland. He has been effective at one-man rule. He's been effective at destroying his country. He's been effective at killing its youth. He's been effective at getting the most talented Russians to leave the country. He's been effective. I mean, Tucker has to be the most dishonest, disgusting commentator out there. Because, I mean, he's not Nick Fuentes at Candace Owen, but yeah, but he was something a while ago. He used to be something. So he says, I'm not moving to Russia, but Putin has been the most effective leader in my lifetime. Why is he more evil than Joe Biden? Maybe because he started a war and killed a lot of people and destroyed his own economy and destroyed his own people. And then he says, I can't even conceptualize that. Conceptualize is a big word for Tucker. I don't know if he quite understands what that means, but I believe him when he can't conceptualize that, because this one is so easy that the only way you can conceptualize it is if you've created a massive lie with massive rationalizations to try to prevent you from actually seeing right in front of your face the truth. So Witkoff likes Putin, Tucker Carlson likes Putin, and maybe Putin's biggest fan is Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump, blames Ukraine, blames everybody else, lashes out at the Ukrainians. It's all their fault. Of course, Putin has rebuffed him over and over and over and over again. And once in a while, he kind of gets angry, and then he remembers that he really loves Putin, and they really have this bromance going. And Putin has nukes, and Putin's strong, and Putin runs a big country, a country bigger than the United States. That has to count for something. I mean, geographically, bigger than the United States. And he remembers that, yeah, I mean, his real friends are Putin and Xi and that monster from North Korea. And he remembers that, and I guess he calms down, and he remembers that Zelensky's short and doesn't wear a suit, and his country's pathetic, it's insignificant. And yeah, he's got to take Putin's side, because Putin's his bud. Putin's his buddy. I mean, at the end of the day, Trump loves strongmen. He loves strongmen. He loves people who win, even if it's by cheating, as we saw with his conversation with Erdogan from Turkey. And he loves people who want to use the state to pursue their agenda, as we saw with Mamdani. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, the love fest there. He loves little or big or short or, I don't know, authoritarians. He likes authoritarians. And he has no freedom, free countries, self-defense, means nothing to him. It really means nothing to him. Strength, that's all that matters. Strength. I mean, he realized Ukraine can't beat Russia, certainly without the U.S. help. He doesn't want to help Ukraine because MAGA doesn't really want to spend money on helping Ukraine. So he doesn't want to help Ukraine. And he wants that Nobel Peace Prize. And he likes Putin, and he would like Putin to succeed, but Putin's kind of not going anywhere, not really succeeding. So he's going to help Putin succeed and get a peace prize by securing some kind of deal there. Anyway, just to give you a sense of what's going on the ground, the Russians are gaining ground very, very, very slowly. Huge casualties. Every few months they move a little bit. But for them to gain the Donbass, what Ukraine is about to hand over to them if they follow Trump's peace deal, it's going to take them years at the current pace. And a huge amount of bloodshed, particularly Russian blood, and an economy that deteriorates further. So Ukraine is not winning, and Ukraine doesn't have the capacity to really beat the Russians back without much more Western aid, which it's not getting and it's not going to get, it looks like. But Russia's not advancing very far, and with a little bit more Western aid, Russia wouldn't advance at all. It would just be a war of attrition to go on for a long, long time. And to some extent, Ukraine knows that and is realizing that they're in trouble and they might need a deal. And they might have to compromise. And they might have to give the Russians a lot in order just to breathe, in order to get a little bit of breathing space. But they also don't want to do it in such a way that gives Russia the ability to launch the war again in a few years, and this time sweep through Ukraine, because Ukraine has a smaller military and Europe will not defend them and the United States will not be there, and they'll just dominate them completely. Ukraine can indeed defeat the Russians if they got proper aid, but they're not going to. It's just not going to happen under Trump. And the Europeans are too poor. They're too poor. They're too fragmented. They're too indecisive. They're too cowardly. Mainly, they're too poor to really provide Ukraine with the kind of aid it needs in order to win this. So Ukraine, over the weekend, sent Zelensky and others went to, I guess it was Zurich, Geneva, I think. And they met with Marco Rubio and an American delegation, Marco Rubio, who was not at all involved in this 28-point plan, had nothing to do with it. It was handed to him. I mean, this is what Trump does. He doesn't, I mean, he keeps saying he has respect for Rubio, but only because Rubio is a yes man. And all this interesting stuff happens around Rubio, and then Rubio gets handed it, and Rubio doesn't reject it, doesn't fight against it, doesn't complain to Trump. He just rolls with it, and Rubio is stuck negotiating this deal with the Ukrainians. So there was a negotiation in Geneva this weekend. The 28-point plan is now a 19-point plan. A lot of Ukrainians' points are being included into the plan. The plan has changed significantly. It's not clear exactly where and how, but Ukraine wants, if they're going to get security guarantees, they want explicit security guarantees that are very clear and very explicit. They don't want to give up the land, and if they're going to, they might make it demilitarized, but they won't give it up completely. Generally, they're not willing to give up any land, so whatever this deal would be, from their perspective, temporary and order. Anyway, there's a draft now that's a 19-point plan that's much more aligned with Ukrainian goals. And of course, Rubio has now talked to Trump, and because Rubio talked to Trump, Trump has now mellowed a little bit. Now he's a little bit more pro-Ukraine and a little bit more anti-Russia. And so it really depends who Trump is talking to. If he talks to Witkoff, it's one thing. If he talks to Rubio, it's another. If he talks to J.D. Vance, it's something else. But the bottom line is there seems to be some agreement coming together around this new plan, which is a version of the original plan, but a significantly changed version. And of course, Russia's already said, look, even the 28-point plan, even though we get everything we want to tinker with it a little bit. It's like everything we want. There are a few things we want in addition. And now it's going to be trimmed back to this 18, 19 points. And now the Russians are not going to get anything close to everything they want. So again, the Russians are going to turn it down. And then Trump is going to have to decide who he's going to blame. Is he going to blame the Ukrainians? Is he going to blame the Russians? Who is going to blame for this? It's a real challenge. Nothing's going to come of this, I don't think, except more strife and more headaches. And Zelensky's coming to Washington supposedly to meet with Trump to finalize the fine points, as if Trump knows what a fine point is or cares about the fine points. But he'll come. Rubio will hold his hand. Maybe half the European leaders will come like last time to hold his hand and help him. Although I think he's figured out how to deal with Trump. He compliments him, he thanks him, he grovels, he kisses the ring, and then he makes his argument, which is much easier. But even then, they fight. Trump just wants Putin to win. He just wants Russia to get what it wants. He just doesn't give one iota about Ukraine. He really doesn't care. He wants to be able to say he cut a deal. He wants to be able to say he got a compromise. He got a peace deal. He got a Nobel Prize. He doesn't care about truth or justice or who's right or who should win. None of that. He likes Putin. He doesn't like Zelensky. And he wants a deal, and he realizes that Putin won't budge. And therefore, he has to compromise. He has to sell out Zelensky to Putin. That's it. This is how thugs deal with the world. They deal based on power of the other side, and not based on justice or truth or values. They don't values here, except force. Force is the only value Trump values, if you will. Anyway, We will see what happens. Zelensky's coming, maybe. And I think Putin's going to say no, although maybe they'll have to meet again and Trump will have to grovel again and for Putin to actually say no. Maybe we'll do a flyover and a red carpet. Maybe he didn't get a gun salute like the MBS from Saudi Arabia got a full gun salute. Maybe that's what Putin is waiting for in order to agree. Putin is no rush. Putin, unless he gets everything he wants, is afraid that once the war is over, the Russian people will turn on him and ask him what it was all for. What did they gain from it? As long as the war is going, he can muster the patriotism of the Russian people and say he's the only guy who can see this through, and he has a vision, and he knows what needs to be done, and he's channeling the Russian spirit. Once the war is over, and all the widows and parents who've lost their kids, and injured soldiers coming back from the front, and just soldiers coming back from the front with PTSD, are going to turn around and say, what was this for? What did we achieve here? We're even poorer than we were before. Now, why is this in America's self-interest, to help Ukraine or to care about this? I did a whole talk about this a couple of years ago, so you can find that online. But basically, Russia is a threat to the United States. Russia is an enemy. It is, funding our enemies. It is funding attacks on our allies. It is it has ambitions to become a global power, starting with Europe and dominating Europe. That is not in America's interests. And the United States should help hold back an enemy, hold back the bad guys for pretty cheap cost. If Putin attacks NATO and Article 5 is implemented and the U.S. abides by its treaty, which maybe it won't, but if it does, that will cost within months more than years of support for Ukraine. So if you can effectively and cheaply, if you could effectively and cheaply reduce the threat that Russia poses, then why not do it? I mean, our debt is so large. Our government spends so much money. The money we send to Ukraine is trivial. And given that mostly we send them weapon systems, and usually what we send them is weapon systems that are dated, it doesn't actually cost us much out of the treasury. These are bombs and missiles that we would have to replace anyway. These are weapon systems that are already dated, that have to be replaced and upgraded anyway. So instead of putting into some trash heap, we give them to Ukrainians. Or right now, Trump is selling them to NATO. But we give them to Ukrainians. I mean, it seems like such a good deal as compared to actually going to war with Russia, that it's a no-brainer. Just a no-brainer to support Russia. All right, talking about another country that the United States supports, and people complain about it, and here the amount of money involved is so small, it's pathetic that anybody even raises it, given the size of the American budget and how little we give to Israel. Even though I've said for years, 20-something years, 30 years maybe, that the United States should stop giving money to Israel, or Israel should stop taking money from the United States. Either way, it doesn't help Israel. It hurts it, and it's hurting it right now. It's making a lot of people turn against Israel. It's an excuse. It's not a real reason. It's an excuse. But fine, Israel doesn't need the money. But anyway, it's such a small amount to pretend that it's about the debt, the deficit. It's such a joke. The deficit is $1.9 trillion. Trillion. And Israel gets what, 3 billion? 1.9 trillion to 3 billion. That's 1% of 1.9 trillion would be, 19 billion, right? That would be 1%. So this is 0.1% of the deficit, not of spending, of the deficit. And this is what people get excited about. And then I shouldn't call them anti-Semites because they don't get excited about all the billions of dollars we spend on so many crappy, stupid, stuff in the United States. All right, let's see. So let's turn to Israel. So Israel has a few things out of Israel, both in terms of more information about what happened on October 7th, but also a few things Israel is doing. So Israel, Hamas breaks the ceasefire periodically by shooting or by approaching the yellow line, which they're not supposed to cross. Israel retaliates. They also have made it very clear that they don't have any intent to disarm. It's also become clear that no country is willing to send their troops to Gaza to try to forcefully disarm Hamas. Nobody is that suicidal. So this Trump peace plan is complete garbage. It's useless. Nobody's going to actually do the work. In the end, only one military in the world can do the work, is motivated to do the work, is incentivized to do it, is willing to do it, and has the capability of doing it, and that's Israel. So Israel has, over the last few years, killed a major commander within Hamas, one of the remaining commanders in Hamas that they didn't kill before. Israel has also, there's a yellow line where Israel now, in the yellow area where Israel occupies about 53% of Gaza, and the rest is in a sense, Hamas occupied. But in the area that Israel occupies, there's some Hamas stuck. And Israel is basically clearing them out and killing them, capturing them and killing them. So there's been a lot of activity around that. But they have been bombing and killing senior people within Hamas. And then over the weekend, they did something they haven't done in a while, and that is they bombed Beirut. They killed Hezbollah's number 2, Haitham al-Tabtabai, something like that. Hezbollah's top military commander. And basically Israel is saying to Lebanon, if you won't disarm Hezbollah in Lebanon, we will. We will stop bombing you, and we will stop bombing them, and there's going to be collateral damage from Lebanese. So if the Lebanese army doesn't go in and actually start dismantling Hezbollah, we will. Israel, signed a ceasefire deal with Lebanon and Hezbollah, but only under the assumption that Lebanon would disband Hezbollah, or disarm them at least. And the opposite is happening. Hezbollah is rebuilding tunnels, rebuilding storages of weapon systems, and Israel is now hitting Lebanon basically daily. It's going to increase the sorties. It's going to increase the amount of bombing significantly in the days to come. There's going to be a lot more. Now, it is possible that Hezbollah will retaliate. They still have a lot of missiles, maybe tens of thousands of missiles still they have. They still have some launches. They could start launching missiles into northern Israel. They are worried because of what happened last time. You remember the beepers, the killing of the entire Hezbollah leadership, or almost the entire Hezbollah leadership. destruction of many of those missiles, many of those launches, and Israel's basically incursion into South Lebanon. Well, Israel is threatening to do all of that again, starting next week. Next week. So Israel is doing what they said they would do. We'll see what happens with Iran, but they're doing what they said they do. They basically said, look, we're going to leave you alone, but every time you raise a hand against us, every time you buy more weapons, you stockpile more missiles, you threaten our troops in any way, we will come down on you. And that's what they're doing. They're doing it in Gaza. They're doing it here. Whereas in the past, Israel would do ceasefires, and they would withdraw, and they'd forget about it. And then the other side would rearm and do everything, and Israel would just ignore it all. Israel's not ignoring it now. Now, hopefully, they can sustain this for a very long time, because they'll need to. But, yeah, they are... Anyway, Israel's being diligent about not letting either Hezbollah or Hamas get reestablished, and they're taking them out where they need to. I don't know if you saw the bombing that killed this guy, but very little collateral damage, which was pretty amazing. Again, it was pinpoint accuracy. They knew exactly where he was. Analysts are saying they're using AI facial recognition on drones to identify Hezbollah, leaders as they're moving around. They've got drones all over Beirut, and and then when the time comes, they can just launch against any one of them. So it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if Hezbollah responds. If it retaliates, I think it's all-out war with Israel. If it doesn't, then Israel would just keep on using bombings to reduce Hezbollah's capabilities until the Lebanese government decides to get serious about trying to disarm Hezbollah itself. All right, a few things about Israel. So, now that there's relative calm in Israel, there's a lot of soul searching and about October 7th and how it happened, at least at the military level. You're not yet seeing it at the political level. So there's still no commission. There's still no organized, investigation into, were the politicians, did they have any part in this, fault in this? Politicians have no incentive to look at their own responsibility. But the military, for example, put out a list the other day. I think it was yesterday, November 23rd, so yesterday, basically naming all the commanders. These are generals, brigadier generals, senior commanders within the Israeli army, who are going to be dismissed or sanctioned or discharged completely, even from reserve duty. It starts from the former chief of the Military Intelligence Directorate, the former chief of the Operations Directorate, the command of the IDF Southern Command, the chief of Military Intelligence Directorate, the head of the Israeli Air Force, the commander-in-chief of the Israeli Navy. I mean, all of them have been named, sanctioned, and held responsible, at least to some extent, for what happened on October 7th. Israel is the Israeli military taking accountability, figuring out who is responsible, naming names, which is super important. So that has happened. One other thing, there's a lot of looking at how Hamas gathered intelligence, how it knew where to attack, and how did it pull it all off on October 7th? And it turns out that one of the things that they were doing is that they basically been following social media of soldiers, and they learned a lot about the soldiers, where they were, what they were doing, what their routines were, but even about the weapon systems. Soldiers would take selfies and do videos and in the tank, around the tank. They knew, for example, that there's a secret button in the tank which, when pressed, basically disables the tank for a certain period. How did they have this information? People asked. Well, beginning in 2018, about 2,500 Hamas operatives started following nearly 100,000 IDF soldiers on social media. And these soldiers did not treat the information they had appropriately. By tracking the soldiers, Hamas pieced together the puzzle, obtained highly valuable information, photos and videos, some of them trivial, from the bases, outposts, and armored corps training bases, training videos of soldiers demonstrating trank procedures. And they built an entire program based on these videos in terms of what they could do, how they could deal with the tanks and how they could do with the advanced weapons the Israelis had, where they were, what their routines were, when they could hit them the hardest. I mean, Hamas even created fake accounts, WhatsApp groups, to recruit people from elite IDF combat units, and then gain access to those soldiers, even when they didn't have a public profile. So they got their names. So they had information about where the cameras were placed and what the procedure was if an alarm went off and all of this. Using this information, according to this report that has come out, Hamas built maps, simulations, and even simulators. It purchased the 3D simulator software at full one-to-one scale and constructed simulators of bases and outposts. The terrorists could put on virtual reality headsets in Gaza and rehearse the infiltration of each of the IDF's outposts. Hamas also built physical real-world models of the Gaza border outposts and trained inside them. Now, Israeli intelligence knew some of this was going on, but they couldn't imagine how accurate they were. And of course, warnings from intelligence operatives and intelligence officers went unheard. They were not taken seriously by the political levels and by senior Israeli military officers. I mean, think about what a powerful tool this iPhone is. And every soldier has one. And they're playing around, and they don't think there's a real threat. They don't think there's a war going to happen. They're sitting at the base. They're bored. They're playing games. They're doing videos. They're chatting with their girlfriends. They're filming funny videos. They're showing off to their girlfriends. Oh, look at my tank. Look at this button. Look at what this button does. And senior commanders, again, evade the real threat. They can't imagine Hamas will ever do anything. This is from the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, all the way down. I mean, there was a risk assessment at one point that the IDF did maybe a year or two before October 7th, where the number one risk facing Israel, the number one existential risk that Israel faced, not Hamas, not Iran, not Hezbollah, not Egypt, not Iran, climate change. Climate change. So yeah, Hamas got all this information from gullible young people who were just fooling around because they didn't take the threat seriously, because their commanders didn't take the threat seriously, because their political leaders didn't take the threat seriously, because they were basically betrayed by all those more adult, more senior people. Remember, these soldiers are kids, really nothing more than kids. These are going to be, this is going to be quick on Iran, just a couple of things on Iran that I'm going to note. We'll get back to these because they'll be in the news for a while now. But Iran is in really big trouble. Its economy is in tatters. It cannot reconstitute the military that it had before the 12-day war with Israel. And what's happening is they're running out of water. I mean, literally running out of water. In some cities in Iran, you open the tap, nothing comes out. Decades of bad decisions, decades of evasion, decades of focusing on building up a military at the expense of water and food and basic needs for the Iranian people. Literally, if you look at the water reservoirs in Iran with dams, the water is almost empty. They really are facing the possibility of not having water. Truly shocking. Millions, tens of millions of people are threatened by no water. And they don't have the money to solve the problem. Now, note, Israel, for example, has so much water right now. Israel, they used to be Israel always used to struggle with water. When I was a kid, I mean, you had to watch water. You couldn't use X number of water. Now there's so much water in Israel because of desalination technology that Israel is refilling the Sea of Galilee, which has gone down because people are using water upstream. It's gone down in level. So they're now pumping from the desalination plants from the Mediterranean water to the Sea of Galilee and refilling it, which is crazy stuff. But that's the difference between an advanced, technologically advanced, relatively rich, free country that has entrepreneurs that invested in improving its own people's lives by leaving them free to innovate and produce. The difference between that and a theocratic regime dedicated to going after its enemies, building weapons and producing and creating and building nothing, and seeing its people, poor and now get thirsty. All right. Also in Iran, there is a huge amount of pollution. There's the city Shahryar, where the area is so choked with toxic dust that people can hardly see 10 steps ahead. Again, they're going after the regime for the neglect that left the city in near emergency conditions. Citizens struggle to breathe. And again, the regime sinking billions into nuclear weapons and into missiles and into all this other stuff. This is the kind of mixture of real economic damage, the risk of not having water, pollution, but real pollution that is really, everybody knows is harming people's lives, that is going to turn people against this regime. I mean, you're already seeing that wearing, head covering for women is not being enforced in Tehran. The regime doesn't want a fight right now, but it might get a fight, not over freedom, but over neglect, over just neglecting its population. So the months to come, I think, are going to be super important in terms of what happens in Iran. And I hope they're going to lead to ultimately a revolution, which I've been waiting for a very long time. All right. A lot of like $5, $10 questions. Put in some $20, $50 questions. We need to get our goals, and I'm tired tonight, so a lot of $5 to $10 questions. We'll have to go all night to get to the goals. All right. Value for value. Remember that. Mamdani. Did you guys see this meeting between the socialist Mamdani and Trump? I mean, wow. Mamdani had actually called Trump a fascist and has repeated that since the meeting. And yet they were like best buds. I mean, Trump showed real respect for Mamdani. They agreed about the affordability crisis, right? I mean, this was supposed to be like a heavyweight fight. No, it was a love fest. Trump said, I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I mean, statists love each other. This is not an ideological confrontation. It's not that they disagree about ideology. Trump has no ideology. And to the extent he believes in stuff about government, Mamdani is not in a position. No, they disagree with immigration, I'm sure. But they don't disagree about, I'm sure they don't disagree about rent control or about lowering the cost of whatever, fill in the blank. I mean, Trump would love to open a government-run grocery store. It really is, it is fascinating. Of course, MAGA kind of freaked out. They didn't know what to do. You know, some people kind of went with Trump because they have to, because that's what MAGA means. It means worshiping Trump. Some of them said, oh, Trump was just being soft on Mamdani because he didn't want to insult him. He didn't want to humiliate him in public. Others said, oh, no, it's just Trump, being funny. This is a sense of humor. A sense of humor. It's a lot of people just ignored it because they don't know what to say. They don't know what to say. Remember, Trump called Mamdani a communist lunatic not that long ago. And that was repeated all over MAGA and the right-wing media. And even during the press conference, they were really friendly. Fuentes loved it. He thought this just showed that it's all a soap opera. They don't believe anything they're peddling, which is true. It's like, wow. It was fascinating, and I don't know. I mean, this was very it was very interesting to see, how explicitly Trump stands for nothing. He is quite happy to embrace what Laura Loomer calls a jihadist communist. She was horrified. She was not happy with Trump at all. But she also said she didn't condemn the president. She wasn't happy, but she wasn't condemning the president. I don't know how that fits. It's quite something. It's quite something. Bannon was critical, or maybe. Bannon, what Bannon really was saying was, this is Trump playing 4D chess. He wasn't critical. He was saying Trump's playing 4D chess. And what Trump is doing is he's going to boost Mamdani, and he will let him collapse. And then he'll say, see, this is what happens to Marxist jihadis. Anyway, it was... It was quite something. I mean, the shaking of hands, the smiling. It's the kind of treatment Trump gives MBS, Putin, Xi. And he gave it to Mamdani. He elevated Mamdani to that level. It's quite something. It's quite something. But it's... it says so much about Trump and who he is and what he is, and so much about his supporters that they didn't freak out about this. That this wasn't like, okay, he's finished. It just shows that the differences between Trump and Mamdani don't exist. Trump is, economically, basically no different than Mamdani. He's just as socialist as Mamdani is, in essential terms. He's a statist. He wants government intervention everywhere possible. And it's just shocking. It's shocking, not shocking, that Mamdani and Trump get along. That's not surprising, really. What's shocking is people not seeing it for what it is. People not, seeing that what this represents is the extent to which Trump is a leftist. And how completely bankrupt the whole thing is. Jesse Waters at Fox said the chemistry between Trump and Mamdani was undeniable. Undeniable. Because it was there. All right, talk about Trump's leftist economics. There's the whole thing about Obamacare. And the Democrats shut it down because they want an extension of Obamacare subsidies. For Obamacare, these are subsidies that were extended and expanded during COVID. And the Democrats want to continue that. They want to continue that. And Republicans didn't. And, that was supposed to be what the shutdown was about. It was about the extension of ACA. And Trump, during the shutdown, said, we should give the money to the people. And a number of Senate Republicans came out with health saving account proposals that looked kind of good. And I was like, whoa, maybe something good will come of Trump administration on healthcare. Maybe. Yeah, false hope, as usual. The good stuff is like he does at 2 a.m. and it disappears by morning. It's gone. The White House is now saying that Trump is going to pitch Obamacare extensions, not with limits that will then be expanded, because limits are in the future. The limits expand in the future. But the president's going to make an announcement. There's going to be some, nod to HSAs. It's going to be trivial and insignificant and meaningless. But basically, you're going to get an increase in the Obamacare subsidies, just like the Democrats wanted. There'll be some income. You'll be required to show some income, and there'll be some conditions placed in it to make it look a little bit more Republican. They'll reduce the cap for eligibility. But it'll still be high, 700% of the federal poverty line. You'll still be eligible for Obamacare for the whole thing. So, they're talking about an option for enrollees who receive part of their tax credit in a tax advantage saving account if they move down to a lower premium health plan. But it's like, it's not a full endorsement. Scrap ACA. Scrap the whole thing and move to health saving accounts. So Trump, this is Trump, right? No freedom, no liberty, no economic freedom principles, just appeasement. The Obamacare is actually very popular, and it's very popular among Trump voters. Remember, Trump voters are in lower income categories who actually use Medicaid, and they use Obamacare, and they don't want to lose it. So rather than propose something innovative, something that would really change healthcare, something that would really help us and make healthcare cheaper and better and available to everybody, and rather than do that, there was a little 5-minute window in which it was being under consideration, he's basically going to go to tinkering a little bit with the increase in subsidies for Obamacare. Never mind end Obamacare. That will, yeah. And continuing on the same theme, right? Remember DOGE? Remember? It wasn't that long ago, right? 8 months ago. Remember all the promise? Remember how some of some of you listening to this show were super excited about DOGE? and this was going to change the world, and they were literally going to cut spending, and they were going to shrink government, and they were going to change America, and it was going to be so cool. And Elon Musk, of course, was this genius who was now going to do this. And yeah, you all know that he was going to do this. And many of you, enthusiastically supported this. Well, now I guess officially, DOGE is shut down. It doesn't exist anymore. It's still got 8 months left in its charter, which was they had a charter at the beginning. It's gone. Nobody works for DOGE anymore. Shut down. Elon Musk promised $2 trillion in saving. Overall, probably the amount of saving is probably, if you take everything into account, I don't know, something around zero. It was an amateurish debacle that somebody predicted. I remember somebody explicitly saying this would not work and they didn't know what they were doing. I remember saying that. I remember saying that over and over and over again. And people said, no, but it's Elon Musk. He's a genius. Nothing. They fired a lot of people. That didn't change anything. They stopped the foreign aid. Again, foreign aid is not the problem, budgetary problem. That's not what's killing us. It's a joke. It turned out to be a joke. And it always was a joke. And you would think, here's the frustration that I feel. I get so many of these things right. Now I get some things wrong. I admit I get some things wrong. But I get so many of these things right when other people do not. Why don't I have 2 million followers? I don't know. I mean, shouldn't being right be rewarded? Not in the world in which we live, it turns out. All right. Last week, there was a video made with a number of Democratic senators basically doing this video and basically saying, making this statement to the military, if you get illegal commands to do illegal things, you should not do them, right? Disobey orders if the orders are illegal, which is completely consistent with what the military holds. I mean, it was suggesting that maybe some of Trump's orders are illegal, which I think they are, but that's all it was. Anyway, one of those, Trump went into tantrum. I don't have the Truth Social, but he called them traitors, and he said they should be hung, they should be killed as traitors. He just flew off. I mean, he went crazy, as Trump does. I mean, this guy's, he's unhinged. I'm sorry, he's not only a 5-year-old when it comes to economics, but he's a 5-year-old when it comes to these kind of things. He's just unhinged. And, basically they came out and said, you shouldn't follow orders if they're illegal. And again, Trump called them the worst kind of names and went into this complete insane diatribe. I mean, we literally have an unhinged president. And we have a president who has no respect for the Constitution and has no respect for the commitment of the military to that Constitution. Now, since then, he's posted something about, yes, the military should follow the Constitution or something like that, because I guess he got a backlash from maybe some conservatives. I don't know. Anyway, today, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, said that the military is going to look into Senator Mark Kelly, who is, of course, was a part of the Navy and is in reserves, to maybe bringing him into the military and court-martial him for this video that he made, which I hope they do, because then it'll show how pathetic and ridiculous, and no court of law will ever convict a Mark Kelly. But, claim they were seditious. Which is completely insane. Anyway, what this actually has done is elevated Senator Mark Kelly and put him in the headlines. He might now be the front runner for the Democratic nomination for president. I mean, he has a good post today on Twitter. When I was 22 years old, I commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy and swore an oath to the Constitution. I upheld that oath through flight school, multiple deployments on the USS Midway, 39 combat missions in Operation Desert Storm, test pilot school, 4 space shuttle flights at NASA, and every day since I retired, which I did after my wife Gabby was shot in the head while serving her constituents. In combat, I had a missile blow up next to my jet and flew through anti-aircraft fire to drop bombs on enemy targets. At NASA, I launched on a rocket, commanded the space shuttle, and was part of the recovery mission that brought home the bodies of my astronaut classmates who died on Columbia. I did all this in service of this country that I love and has given me so much. Now, if that is not a campaign speech, I don't know what is. Secretary Hegseth's tweet is the first I've heard of this. I also saw the president's post saying I should be arrested, hanged, and put to death. If this is meant to intimidate me and other members of Congress from doing our jobs and holding this administration accountable, it won't work. I've given too much to this country to be silenced by bullies who care more about their own power than protecting the Constitution. Now, I don't know what I think about Mark Kelly's views about economics or foreign policy or pretty much anything. I don't know. But that is good. That's inspiring. That's correct. Naming the Constitution, going after bullies the way he is. This is obviously a courageous individual who has, served in the military. Has flown a space shuttle into space. Pretty cool. I mean, this is a cool guy. He should run for president. I think he is. I think he's going to. I think maybe Gavin Newsom will have his hands full in 2028 on the Democratic side. Anyway, Pete Hegseth and President Trump seem to be elevating him to that point. Look, Trump is doing everything that he can to, to position the military as his. Not as serving the Constitution, not as serving the nation, but as serving Trump. They've replaced generals. They have, they've made it very clear, the chain of command, the importance of command. They have disrespected the Constitution. They don't care about the Constitution. They've clearly stated, Trump has, that the enemy is within. I mean, what Trump is doing is positioning the military to do his bidding internally. Now, again, I don't think Trump is the guy who will actually take advantage of all that. Although who knows if he loses big in the midterm, what Trump turns to in his final 2 years. But J.D. Vance is out there. Others in the Republican Party out there. This power grab or the assertion of power that Trump has taken on, placing him above the law and above the Constitution, above everything else. The autocrats of the future, left or right, are going to use this. This will be the presidency that is the pivot. I mean, it started in the first term, but as I told you would happen, this term, it's on steroids. Here's another example. Here, where the only part of government that is pushing back against Trump is the court system. Anyway, as we know, Trump has launched warfare on his opponents, among them James Comey and Letitia James, who are being indicted under very, 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 very questionable circumstances. Clearly and only because they went after Trump, no prosecutor would actually prosecute them. A prosecutor in Virginia actually left her position, resigned her position, or because she couldn't bring charges against Comey and Letitia James. Okay. So Trump then appointed somebody to that position who would bring those charges. This is the Eastern District of Virginia. The prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, and a judge today, a federal judge, on Monday, basically dismissed the criminal cases against Comey and James, concluding that the prosecutor who brought the charges at President Trump's urging had been illegally appointed by the Justice Department. Now, this will be appealed, and this will go on. But even before this, there were all kinds of irregularities about these cases. There was a grand jury, and the grand jury was not shown the ultimate, what do you call it? Claim against them. I mean, this has been a amateuristic witch hunt. Is that true? Yeah, amateuristic witch hunt. A White House spokesman has said that the ruling will not be the final word on the matter, so they're going to appeal. Attorney General Mamdani vowed in a different press conference that the Justice Department would pursue an immediate appeal and will look into maybe bringing the cases again, because the cases are now being dismissed. Now, of course, this is, as I said, this is just one facet of just an assault on these indictments. So this is what happened last week. Comey's lawyer last week, in moving to get his case tossed out, seized on a judge finding of a constellation of grand jury irregularities and missteps by Halligan. This is the attorney general, the attorney. James likewise has cited outrageous government conduct preceding her indictment. Yeah, I mean, they're just, because they can't get the pros to indict them because the pros think there's no case here. They're getting amateurs to indict them, and therefore it's an amateuristic case and it's a joke. But that's the Trump administration, just hammer away at your opponents. The hell about the rule of law and doing it properly and actually going after people who are guilty. No. It's about going after Trump's enemies and doing what Trump promised at the expense of justice, truth, Constitution, the rest of it. Finally, some good news. This was great. So, one of the best historians, not just according to me, but according to, I think, people who are pretty good at this and experts on this and who know the history, one of the best historians of the American founding of early America is Gordon Wood. Gordon Wood must be in his 80s or 90s now. Gordon Wood is kind of one of the real giants of American history. And Gordon Wood had an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last week that it's important for me to point out to you, because it's the first time I've seen somebody other than me, if I can say so, standing up to the J.D. Vances and the national conservatives and the Christian conservatives and all these people and a variety of different senators, Josh Hawley and other senators, which we've talked about on the show, who've claimed that America is not about ideas. America is about a people, about a place, and that to be an American is really about bloodline. It's about whether your ancestors fought in some war 150 years ago or 250 years ago. I mean, to me, this right now intellectually may be the most important battle in America today. What is America? We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of this country. 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. July 4th, 2026. This is going to be a year, 2026, where what is America should be the number one question that everybody asks. And it's clear what the new right thinks. It's your skin color, with some exception to we're grandfathering some blacks because, yeah, we enslaved them and, they're just part of the country. They've been here a long time. And, some Mexicans, we conquered their land and they were here, and maybe some Native Americans. This is a white nation, we are told. And to be a real American, what they're calling a heritage American, is to be the offspring of people who fought in the Great Wars, primarily the War of Independence and the Civil War. And the Civil War, it doesn't matter which side. That is what makes America. Is America, we are told. Well, this is and I encourage you to find this op-ed and, read it and share it and disseminate this, because this is going to be a big topic this year. I'm going to be talking about it a lot. What is America? We'll keep repeating it. I think a lot of people will be talking about it. It is an important issue. This is the title of Gordon Wood's essay. Why America is a creedal nation. Credo means a creed, a set of ideas. The subtitle says, the distinguished historian says the United States isn't like other nations and never has been. There is no American ethnicity to back up the state. I'm going to read you a little bit of this. It's long, and a lot of it is the history, and it's got some stuff in 1776 and the founders and the struggles they had with these questions. We have some anniversaries coming up next year that may help us, he writes. We have, of course, the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The same date is the bicentennial of the deaths of two founders most responsible for that great document, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. The Declaration is vital to understanding who we are as Americans. There's been some talk recently that we aren't and shouldn't be a creedal nation, that beliefs in a creed are too permissive, too weak a basis for citizenship, and we need to realize that citizens with ancestors who go back several generations have a stronger stake in the country than more recent immigrants. I reject this position as passionately as I can. So happy to hear Gordon Wood say that. We have seen blood and soil efforts before. In the 1890s, we also saw crisis over immigration. Some Americans try to claim that because they had ancestors who fought in the Revolution or came here on the Mayflower, they were more American than recent immigrants. My wife and I recently gotten to know a couple who came from Romania in the 1970s and became American citizens in the 1980s. Although they speak with a slight accent, I believe with all my heart that they are as American as someone whose ancestors came on the Mayflower. That is the beauty of America. I mean, think of that. By the other people's claim, Ayn Rand is not an American. I would argue Ayn Rand is the American novelist. She wrote the American novel. I think The Fountainhead is the American novel. She articulated, discovered the American philosophy. She was an American through and through. She understood the founding of America, the essence of America, the spirit of America, better than 99.9999% of Americans, including those Americans who came from the Mayflower, whose ancestors came from the Mayflower. To exclude her would be to betray America. to understand what America is. He goes on, Gordon Wood says, the United States isn't a nation like other nations. And it never has been. There is no American ethnicity to back up the state. And there's no such distinctive ethnicity even in 1776 when the U.S. was created. Many European countries, Germany, for example, were nations before they became states. Most European states were created out of a prior sense of common ethnicity or language. Some of them, like the Czech Republic, were created in the 20th century and are newer than the 249-year-old U.S. Yet all are undergirded by people that had a pre-existing sense of their own distinctiveness, their own nationhood. In the U.S., the process was reversed. Americans created a state before they were a nation, and much of the American history has been an effort to define that nationhood. All right, let me skip ahead here one second. I mean, he basically says, look, even the founders struggled with this. And they didn't know if this project would work. I mean, he says, John Adams certainly had doubts that America could be a real nation. In America, he said, there was nothing like the patria of the Romans or the fatherland of the Dutch or the patria of the French. All he saw in the U.S. was an appalling diversity of religious denominations and ethnicities, right? We are such a hodgepodge of people, he concluded, such an ominous gathering of English, Irish, German, Dutch, Swedes, French, etc., that it is difficult to give a name to the country characteristic of the people. Because that's not what made it so. So, he goes on. It was Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln, who decisively developed an insight that somebody by the name of Niles had, and clenched the case for the importance of the Revolution and the founders to all Americans. When Lincoln declared in 1858, all honor to Jefferson, he paid homage to the founder who he knew could explain why the U.S. was one nation and should remain so. Half the American people, Lincoln said, had no direct blood connection to the revolutionaries of 1776. German, Irish, French, Scandinavian citizens had settled in America, finding themselves our equals in all things. They had, quote, that old Declaration of Independence with its moral principles of equality to draw on. That principle, applicable to all men and all times, made all these different people one with the founders. It's the idea of equality of rights. He says, applicable to all men, all times. Made all these different people one with the founders as though they were blood of blood and flesh of flesh of the men who wrote the Declaration. This emphasis, Gordon Wood writes, this emphasis on liberty and equality, Lincoln said, shifting images was, quote, the electric cord that linked the hearts of patriotic and liberty-loving men together, that will link those patriotic hearts as long as the love of freedom, remember that term, exists in the minds of men throughout the world. Lincoln found in Jefferson's Declaration a solution to the great problem of American identity. How the great variety of individuals in America, with all their diverse ethnicities, races, and religions, could be brought together into a single nation. As Lincoln grasped better than anyone ever has, the Revolution and Declaration offered us a set of beliefs that through the generations has supplied a bond that holds together the most diverse nation history has ever known. Since the whole world is in the U.S., nothing but the ideals coming out of the Revolution and their subsequent rich and contentious history can turn such an assortment of different individuals into one people that the Declaration says we are. To be an American is to be someone. To be an American is not to be someone, but to believe in something. That is why we are at heart a creedal nation. That is why the 250th anniversary of the Declaration next year is so important. So I agree with Wood. Ayn Rand called the United States the first moral nation, the first nation built on a moral principle, the principle of individual rights. That's what America is. That is its creed. All men are created equal in rights, but then that they have those rights and that the government's job is to protect those rights. That is what America is. It's not genes. It's not blood. It's not soil. It's not pretty landscape. It's not God. It's the rights of man. It's the only nation founded on a moral principle. Or the first one founded on a moral principle. It wasn't the only moral nation, it was the only nation founded on a moral principle. Different. Not exactly the same. So yeah, that is the news for November 24th. We will keep coming back to this theme of what is America during the year to come, celebrating that Declaration of Independence, elevating it, and really, this is the year to make a big deal out of it, and this is the year we need to have an impact. We need to move this country. This country needs to move away from the destructive ideas that dominate it today, and back to the principles on which it was founded. All right, guys, that is the news on this, November 24th. It's a Monday. There will be shows every day this week. We'll see about Thanksgiving. Should I do a show on Thanksgiving? Let me know if I should do a show on Thanksgiving. I guess it depends on you, right? A show on Thanksgiving would be, we could do a show just on Thanksgiving. We could celebrate Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving. Somebody says, Laurie says yes. Okay, let me know. Maybe, how about this? Put some money on it, like $1 or $2. So put $1 or $2 with yes or no, and that way, if you really want me to have a show and you put some money on it, and there are a lot of yeses, then we'll do a show on Thursday on Thanksgiving. It will have to be early because there's Thanksgiving dinner and all that stuff. But you guys can bring the turkey, and I'll talk, and we'll talk about what we're thankful for. But put dollars next to the yeses, and we'll see what happens. All right, a reminder. This show is sponsored by a number of different people. We've got entities. The Ayn Rand Institute, which is promoting its conference in Europe, the Ayn Rand Conference in Porto, Portugal. And you can sign up for that. You can get information about it. You can apply for a scholarship to it if you're under 34. I will be there. Ankar will be there. Nikos, Ben, Bear, and Todd's Funny will all be there. It'll be a great topic. And great conference. So I hope you join us. And you can sign up as adults. You can get a discount. 26YBS10. 26YBS10. That's a discount code. A 10% discount code. But you can also, if you're a student, you can get a scholarship. So if you, not just a student. If you're under 34, you count as a young person, and you can get a scholarship. So anybody under 34, apply. Particularly you Europeans, those of you in Portugal, but also Americans, you should all apply. It'll be a great conference, and the more of you come, the better it will be. All right, Michael Williams and the Defenders of Capitalism Project, the sponsors of the show. Defenders of Capitalism is a program to defend capitalism. It is affiliated with the leadership program of the Rockies in Colorado. I speak there on a regular basis, as does Michael. We work together on a curriculum to defend capitalism. And check out defendersofcapitalism.com. Let's see. Alex Epstein, the Energy Talking Points. You can sign up to get Alex's Energy Talking Points. Educate yourself about energy, become a better communicator, a better thinker, and just know more about energy by signing up to his Substack. Alex Epstein, AlexEpstein.substack.com. AlexEpstein.substack.com. All right, and then let's see. I want to remind you all. I'm still short, I think, 9 people. 9 people. We got a $20 yes. And we've got a couple of other yeses, $5 yes and a $2 yes. All right, you guys are putting money to the word yeses. This is increasing the incentive and getting us closer to today's goal. This is good. What did I start? Yes, Patreon. I'm looking for 9 new, not people switching from PayPal, but new Patreon subscribers, 9 by the end of the year. So you've got plenty of time, but do it now. Like this could be a Christmas gift to me, right? This could be your Christmas gift to me. Sign up, or to you. Sign up on Patreon. Any level, $5, $10, $500 would be better. $10 and up, you get a ad-free feed of the podcast, so you can listen on your Apple podcast or whatever podcasting app you use with no ads for $10 a month commitment. So please consider signing up. Patreon.com. Just search Yaron Brook Show and sign up. All right. Where are we? We're doing pretty well. We're $35. Sorry, we're $15 away from the target. No, what am I talking about? $35 away from the second hour target. We might go into the third hour today, so you might consider keep going. And by the way, if you want me to do a show on Thanksgiving, do a sticker. Just say on the sticker yes. That's all you have to say, yes. And do a sticker. You can do it for 99 cents. Do it for $1.99. You can do it for $20, $100, $500, whatever you want. But the more the better. I mean, the more people, not the more money. The more people, the more I will be convinced that there's interest in me doing a show on Thanksgiving. Like right now, there are only 3 people. Not very convincing. Ryan, you said Europeans are too poor. They're not poor militarily. And if they had any courage or self-esteem, they would confront Russia directly. They have no moral backbone, and it is disgusting and pathetic. I mean, all of that is true, particularly given that Russia is involved right now in major sabotage attacks against, for example, Polish railroads, airports all over Europe being harassed by drones. All of that is Russia. There's no doubt. Everybody knows it. And yet, Europeans are doing nothing about it. All of these are acts of war by the Russian state. And at the very least, they should be arming the Ukrainians to the teeth. Now, the problem is that because of decades of neglect, European militaries are not in good shape. They don't have the right equipment. The equipment is not up to date. Their soldiers are not well trained, and they're not ready for combat. And that is really the problem. Now, I agree with Ryan, actually. The deeper problem is that they're cowards. The deeper problem is that they're afraid. The deeper problem is they have no moral backbone. That's a deeper problem. But even if they didn't want to fight themselves, they could be arming the Ukrainians so much more than they are right now. And they could be devoting more resources to protecting themselves. They need to. Russia will not stop with Ukraine. They will not stop with Ukraine. Kevin, if I recall correctly, you were in a debate and you said that you would love to be yelled at by Steve Jobs after the other guy took a jab at his treatment of his employees. Why would you love being yelled at by him? I would love to be yelled at by a genius. I would love to have that kind of interaction with genius, with somebody who really knows and is passionate. I've been yelled at by Leonard Peikoff, so that's good. You learn from it. Somebody's upset by something you did. Something thinks that what you're doing is wrong. Somebody cares enough to yell at you because they think you could do better. That's a compliment. And you want to learn from somebody like that. I mean, to just be in the presence of a Steve Jobs. I consider Steve Jobs one of the greatest businessmen in American history. Certainly the most inspiring business leader in my lifetime. I consider him like a symbol of what a business leader could be, and I mean, talk about models for young men. There's your model, Steve Jobs. I mean, I think he's the epitome of masculinity, of self-esteem, of leadership, of presence. Somebody who failed repeatedly and then succeeded, big and inspired. I mean, I consider him a great human being. So, his private life is not my business. I don't really care what he did in his private life. In his public life, he is a great human being and a role model and somebody we should, and just to be in that in a room with Steve Jobs. Wow. That would be cool. And to have him care enough about you so he yelled at you, that's super cool. So I really, really value people who are incredibly knowledgeable, and I have a lot to learn from them. And so I value that. So I don't have any problem being yelled at by somebody who really has something, who I admire, and I have something to learn from. Ryan says, your discussion with Sitch and Adams was one of your best so far. You really had an impact on their ideas and how they view morality. You could tell that their beliefs were being challenged. Bravo. Thank you. I mean, I don't know if I had an impact on their ideas. You'd have to repeatedly confront them with that. My guess is next time I'm on their show, they're back at square one. These ideas typically don't stick with people, certainly not the first time they encounter them. And then they have to do real work in order to properly apply them and integrate them into the entirety of their knowledge. But yeah, I thought it was a good conversation. They were respectful. They asked good questions. They asked kind of, if you will, typical questions. And yeah, I think it went well. And I've seen an uptick since the show. Every day, an uptick in subscribers. I think it's people coming over from their show to subscribe, because I haven't done any shows since then. Maybe that's why. But yeah, it's great. It was great, and they want to have me back, so I'll be doing their show again. Oh, I didn't start with the $50 ones. Sorry, Ryan. Ryan says, for 50 Canadian, the president brought peace to the region for the first time in 7,000 years. Now that the fighting has resumed, do you think he can do it again? I am already saving up vacation on the beautiful Gaza Riviera. I mean, you're exaggerating a little bit, Ryan. I mean, he said 3,000 years, not 7. But yeah, I mean, do you need to hear it from me again about how pathetic Trump is and his declarations and his claims and its and all of that? But yeah, I wouldn't count. I wouldn't count on those investments if they're going to the Gaza Riviera. You might as well buy Bitcoin or something. Jeffrey, all right. I saw you kept the star. So Jeffrey Miller at Bar Miller had a Michelin star. They got a Michelin star last year in 2024, which was fantastic, and they deserve it. And I've eaten there, and it was phenomenal. But it's every year you have to re-own the star. It's not grandfathered. You have to re-own it every year, right? And I think the first time you renew is probably the toughest. Have we kept up the standards? And then you start going maybe for the second star. But first you have to renew the first star, and you have to keep that first star. And it's not easy to keep that first star. But they kept it. So the other night, last week on Tuesday, I think, there was a ceremony. I think it was in Philadelphia. It covered Michelin stars for Philadelphia, Boston, New York, and I think Chicago. And so a bunch of new restaurants got stars. And yeah, Jeffrey's restaurant, Bar Miller, got to keep the star, which keeps momentum in terms of people going there and income and just, I think, motivates Jeffrey to be even more ambitious and go for 2 stars. I also noticed, Jeffrey, that your favorite sushi place that you said, oh, we have to go next time. We have to go to this place. I think it was Sushi Shu, that had 2 stars, got their 3rd star, which is massive. To get 3 stars is massive. So my guess is the price also went up by at least $100 a person once you get that 3rd star. So yeah, we're going to Sushi Shu or whatever it is next time for sure. But yeah, congratulations. It's terrific. You deserve it. We had a great meal there recently, and we loved it. It was really, really good. And we'll be coming back. We will be coming back. No question. By the way, we are now, let's see. We're now, $13 away from our 2nd hour goal. So, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who want me to do a Thanksgiving show, but 10 out of 142 watching. I don't know. That's not inspiring, guys. Like, it's not even 10% of the people listening right now willing to put some dollars to have me do a Thanksgiving show. So let's get a few more and let's close that $13 gap. I've never been on trigonometry. If you guys can get me on trigonometry, that'd be huge. I've been on Lex Friedman 3 times, but I've never been on trigonometry. That would be really, really massive. Doron Regev, I am no fan of Trump. And here's the but. I am seeing the threat from Islamism as bigger and more imminent than what Trump is doing to American democracy. How do you see this and balance the two? Oh, God. I mean, Islamism is, is not a threat. I mean, it's not a real threat. I mean, the West could wipe out Islamism in a day. You know, a little bit of a spine and there's no Islamism. And Islamism is 0 threat, literally 0 threat in the United States. I mean, China and Russia are much bigger threats to the United States than Islamism is. I mean, they could do another 9/11, maybe once every 20 years, but not much more than that. So you know, our freedoms are being eroded every single day by Trump. And our institutions are being eroded and destroyed every single day by Trump. I don't know if we'll ever recover from Trump in terms of our institutions. Can Islamists do that to us? To America? Forget about Israel. Forget about Europe. To America. What is the threat Islamists can do to America? That Muslims generally are 2% of the population. Islamists are less than 1% of the population. Well less than 1% of the population. What can they do? So, and if they did, they're so small, they're so weak, they're so pathetic. I'm not afraid of them. I'm much more worried about the erosion of the connection between the military and the Constitution of America, because they're powerful. They could change my life. They could destroy this country. So, you're worried about Dearborn, Michigan? I mean, Dearborn, Michigan is one concentrated place. Is Dearborn, Michigan going to conquer America? They happen to have a majority in Dearborn, and even in Dearborn, not all the Muslims there are Islamists. Too many. Maybe a majority. But are they the threat to America? You guys are pathetic if you think that's a threat to America. I mean, really pathetic. I mean, it's so easy to destroy that threat. And they can't do anything. They cannot do anything. I mean, if you're in England, or if you're in France, if you're in Germany, if you're Sweden, I get it. Islamism should be what you worry about. But if you're in Michigan, even in Michigan, there's such a small minority, it has no impact. And if the people in Michigan ever got serious about crushing Islamists in Dearborn, they wouldn't survive for very long. Now, are universities a threat to America? Yes. Are professors at the university a threat to America? Yes. And one of the reasons Trump can get away with what he gets away with is because of Qatari money and because of the bad education and because of our professors. If not for all of that, Trump wouldn't exist. Trump is the creation. He's the manifestation of what happens when you do what you do to our universities. But the Islamism, if you have just a little bit of self-esteem, you realize that they are no threat. Could they commit some terrorist acts? Sure. Is that going to topple the U.S.? Is that going to change our Constitution? Is that going to destroy the Supreme Court? Is that going to change our way of life? Not unless we let it. Not unless we give in to them. Not unless we surrender. And that's on us. That's not on them. That's on us. We surrender. So we might commit suicide, but Islamism will never win. And not a threat at all. At all. All right. Akia, I don't know how to pronounce that. AKIANY2. Thank you. $200. Really, really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I think that kind of tilts it towards Thanksgiving show. I'll take that as part of the yes movement. It still would be nice if, like, we had more individuals, even at the low numbers, low dollar amounts, just so I could say more than 10% of the people said yes. But I'll take 200 as to represent a lot of people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, Evan says, great show today, always anchored to the true and the right in our unmoored times. Thank you, Evan, appreciate it. Ian says, I think Trump trying to corrupt the military is one of the most consequential things he is doing. All order, presumed legal, etc. The other thing is the corruption of Justice Department, which he has successfully done. Yeah, Justice Department is done. He's finished. The military is still a work in progress. But look, he is systematically, and I think consciously, undermining our institutions and denigrating the Constitution. That is his goal, or at least the goal of some of the people around him who are maybe more intelligent than him. That is the goal. That is the purpose. That's what they're trying to do. And that's why they will be the most destructive administration in American history if they continue on the path they're on right now. Shazbat. I had no idea that the bodies of the Columbia shuttle disaster were recovered. I'm shocked I saw that happen live. Yeah, I mean, whatever was left of them was recovered. I can't remember if I saw it live, but I remember seeing the video. Whether it was a replay or live, I don't know. But yeah, that was horrible. But yeah, I'm sure they were recovered because he said they were. I don't think he would lie about something like that. Lori, thank you. $20 for a yes. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Shazbat also says, this is a quote from Hank Rearden. What could some bandit take from me compared to the people who are supposed to be my protectors? That is a great quote. That is a great quote and absolutely right. Absolutely right. All right, let me thank again. I came to for the $200. Thank you, Vahab. Thank you, Real Daniel Wellington. Thank you, Florida Nick, MG Day, MGD, Mindspan, Lincoln, Gaffney, Nick, Alan, Laurie, Laid Back, Pedal Pusher, whatever that means. Let's see, we have more stickers. Normative Randroid, Joseph Keller, and Alan, and we've got Mary Aline, and Adam, and Stephen, and Darlene, and Raphael. Thank you guys, all the stickers. But keep them coming. Keep them coming. We've got $43 to make our third hour goal. Whew, okay, like numbers. Aren't Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro's the real heroes for trying to steer conservatives in a better non-Fuentes direction from within the movement? I mean, come on, heroes? So somebody just says what they think and has a somewhat correct position, and now they're heroes because everybody else is such a scumbag? I mean, I have a lot of respect for Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, not only for defending their position, but also particularly Ben Shapiro using moral terms to do it and strongly. So I'm all supportive of that. But so now if we're not Nazis, we're heroes? Or if we're trying to steer the Republican Party away from being full-on Nazis, we're heroes? I mean, do we consider anybody who tries to prevent the Democratic Party from becoming all-out communist heroes? I just don't think of them as heroes. I think they're better than, obviously, the bad guys. And I like some of what they say. But I'll also say this. God, and I'm going to say this. The only reason that the conservative movement and the Republican Party has to be saved is because of people like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. They're the ones who made this possible. They're the ones who caved to Trump. They're the ones who have been watching as the Republican Party has become a socialist, nationalist, a Christian political party. They're the ones who've been watching and by their silence endorsing as the party has moved away from any principle, away from the founding, away from the Declaration, away from individual rights, away from what they claim their conception of conservatism is, away from capitalism, which they claim to be defenders of. They have seen it for years now, for years. And they stay silent. Silent. And now, because Jews and because anti-Semitism is on the rise, and because Israel is attacked, they've woken up. Good. I'm glad they've woken up. Good for them. But where the hell have they been? Where the hell have they been for the last 10 years? I mean, it's disgusting what Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro have done. The cover-up that they have been engaged in covering up the sins of Donald Trump. It's disgusting how they have given their moral sanction to what the Republican Party has become and to the activities, the anti-capitalist, anti-American activities of President Trump and candidate Trump. That they have stayed silent, that they have not criticized Trump, that they didn't go after him after so many disgusting, horrible, despicable things that he has done over the last 10 years. And now they wake up. Now they suddenly remember that there's something to fight for, that conservatism actually stands for something. They are the ones that left the field open to Nick Fuentes. By not, when was the last time Ben Shapiro criticized the National Conservatives, or J.D. Vance, or Yoram Chazoni? As Mark Levin? When was the last time he criticized Josh Hawley and J.D. Vance? When did they make fun of the National Conservative Movement's conferences? Did they rip into the speeches that claimed that this country is blood and soil? When? The point is not anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a symptom of the disease. The disease is MAGA. The disease is the negation of the Constitution. The disease is everything that Trump represents. So their support of Trump, their silence over the shift towards Christian conservatism that the Republican Party has taken, this silence over the insanity, the irrationality, the anti-Americanism of MAGA. There's silence over ICE. There's silence over the attack on the judiciary. There's silence over the attack on the military. There's silence over the attack on capitalism that this administration is engaged in. There's silence of Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. That is what has led us to this point. That has created Nick Fuentes. It has created Donald Trump. It has created MAGA. They didn't fight the fight when it needed to be fought. They came very, very late. And now it might be too late. Where were they when some of us stood up against Trump? Where were they when some of us stood for capitalism? They were unseen, unheard. They can really raise their voice when they want to. And again, good for them for going after Tucker and going after Nick Fuentes. But you know what? Whoever doesn't go after Tucker and Nick Fuentes is so beneath contempt. I mean, they're such easy targets. Tucker and Nick Fuentes? I mean, the fact that we even talk about them is ridiculous. So, yeah. How big of a deal is to go after Tucker and Nick Fuentes? Not big of a deal. The big deal is to go after J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and the national conservatives. Not about their anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism isn't the issue. The issue is the nature of the American right. The issue is, what does this country stand for? The issue is what this country should stand for. Anti-Semitism, again, just a symptom. It's good that that at least woke them up. But they've been sleeping for the last 10 years. Sleeping. So focused on the left, they couldn't see that their own so-called allies were about to stab them in the back and twist the blade. Because they were stabbing America in the back and twisting the blade. Anyway, that's legit me getting angry. Because, I mean, this is such low-hanging fruit. It's so easy to go after Tucker and Carlson. And this, we're going to give them a lot of credit for this. Michael, when Republicans condemn socialism, what they're saying is, look at this more extreme version and how bad it is. So don't mind us when we do a moderate version of it. Well, why moderate? There's a sense in which Republicans are doing just an extreme a version as the socialists. I mean, I wonder if socialists within the Democratic Party would be as audacious as Trump has been in taking equity positions in American companies. I doubt it. Michael says, Jordan Peterson said, people aren't after happiness, they're after not hurting. Such a defeatist view of life. Yes, definitely. A view of life that comes from a level and place. The essence of life is suffering. The essence of life is hurting. The essence of life is pain. It's very existential, very Sartre and Camus. And all you want is the relief of that. And I get it. Jordan Peterson is a clinical psychiatrist. He deals with people who are in pain. That's all he encounters. That's all he deals with. That's his profession. He's extrapolating from his patients the rest of mankind. That's pretty sad. Eula, why don't European countries help Ukraine? Is it in their interest to do so? It should be. It is in their interest. But they're cowards. They don't have a backbone. They're afraid to stand up to Russia. They're afraid. They're not very rich. A country like France is in real financial trouble. Germany's in economic trouble. All these countries are in trouble. It's difficult for them. But they're mainly cowards. Why is Europe being poor an excuse? US minus 40 trillion. Yeah, but we're still much, much richer than them. However you look at it, even in net worth, even if you take the debt into account, America's much richer than Europe. And it's not an excuse. It's just a reality. And in spite of being poor, they should stand up, because if they don't stand up against Russia, they will get poorer. So I'm all for Europe standing up to Russia. I don't say they're poor as an excuse I'm giving. It's an excuse they give. But they are poor, even though we're negative 40 trillion. We're still much richer than Europeans, even on a net basis. All right. What's this doing? Come on. Michael, God, why is this not working? Fuentes and others on the new right often start their monologues with, as a white Christian man. It's the same as the woke left prefacing every statement with, as a woman of color. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good call, Michael. It's identity politics all the way through. The left, the right, they're all identitarian. They all care about race and ethnicity and sexuality, and gender, whatever. That's what they think defines you. They're all determinists, and they're all tribalists and racists, which is the lowest form of barbarians, primitives. They're all primitives. Nick Fuentes is a primitive, a tribal primitive. Michael, it's as if Tucker Carlson is coaching Nick Fuentes and all the others on how to come across as less explicitly evil in order to enter the mainstream conservative movement. Yes, and Tucker knows what he's doing and has done it and is doing it. Note how he's not being repudiated, even though he keeps getting nuttier and nuttier and nuttier and crazier. Nobody wants to exclude him from the conservative movement. It's quite stunning. All right, Michael, which is the best state in the country to start a business or to do business in? I don't know. I think in terms of starting a business, might be Florida. You can look it up. Just Google it, because there are indexes. There's a think tank that puts out an index of the economically freest states in the country and the least regulated states in the country. It also probably depends on the type of business you're in. But I think it's Florida, but there might be a state or two above Florida. Michael, Trump and Mamdani in the Oval Office openly saying he agrees with many of his policies. I see the left and right merging around some form of socialist anti-Semitism. Yeah, I mean, it's socialist, fascist, it's all the same thing. They share a certain anti-Semitism. They'll share a certain love of the environment. We'll see how religion plays into this. We'll see how religion ultimately plays into it. But I do think religion will play a role. Michael, fascists are socialists, traditional socialists and communists don't like. Oh, fascists are socialists, traditional socialists and communists don't like. Well, it's the other way around. Fascism, I mean, if you think about the first fascist as a movement, was, the guy in Italy who was a socialist, who was a member of the Italian Socialist Party, and who, realized Benito Mussolini. God, I can't believe I couldn't come up with the name Mussolini. But anyway, Mussolini realized that he could use the state to implement socialism, or use the state to implement the things he wanted to implement much better than through the workers and a revolution and all that slow stuff. And that the state was really, really important for the kind of collectivistic aims he wanted to achieve. So fascism was a movement that came out of socialism as as they believed, a more effective way to achieve the collectivistic ends that they had. Wyatt, didn't you used to say Russia wasn't a threat to the U.S.? Yeah, I didn't think Russia was a threat to the United States. And there's a sense in which it's not. The real threat is to Europe. But the fact is that the United States is still a member of NATO. As long as the United States is a member of NATO, Russia is a threat to the United States. Right? If the United States left NATO, which I have argued it should, then Russia stops being a threat as much to the United States. And it's the responsibility of Europe to take care of them. But we're not. We are part of NATO. So any attack of Russia on Estonia demands the United States deploy troops, young men and women, to the battlefields of Estonia. I don't want to get there. Rather let the Ukrainians, bog them down, destroy as much of their capability as possible, so we don't have to deploy American troops to defending Estonia, which we have to do by treaty. Michael says, has Peter Singer ever mentioned Ayn Rand or objectivism? Would you debate him? I don't think he ever has, that I know of. But, I'm not an expert on Peter Singer. Would I debate him? Yeah, although I think there are more qualified people to debate him, I would debate him, yes. Peter Singer is a famous philosopher, explicitly altruistic philosopher. Michael says, is Poland embracing capitalism? Is their economy booming? The economy is doing well. They liberalized the economy significantly in the 90s and have kept it free since then, relatively free. So the economy is relatively free, relatively liberal. They haven't really liberalized it more since the 90s, unfortunately. Otherwise, they'd be even richer and they'd be growing even faster. But for a while there, they really did a lot of great work liberalizing the economy. I think I lost a lot of live watchers after that rant on Shapiro and Mark Levin. All right, Blue Soul says he is vacationing in Saigon, Vietnam. Cool. I'm curious what you think. Yeah, at some point, write us a little trip report. I'm curious what it's like. Michael, the young generation thinks nihilism is cool until it happens to them. Yeah, I think that's generally true of nihilists. They think it's cool until their lives are destroyed by it. And it's nihilists on the left, nihilists on the right. We are dominated, certainly at the extremes, by nihilists. Okay, Surenrik, something like that. The significance of the left and right merging on anti-Semitism is that it allows authoritarianism in ways not possible with agreeing on environmentalism. Dictators use an enemy to stay in power. Yes. It won't be enough to have the Jews as an enemy. They'll also have to come up with other enemies. But yes, I agree with you. I think that's right. The Jews as an enemy is very powerful, as we've seen in centuries past, decades and centuries past. Adam G., why do a lot of people think lowering the interest rate will suddenly make everything more affordable? Are we at risk for hyperinflation if rates keep dropping? I think they'll make it more affordable because mortgage rates will go down. Business borrowing will go down. They hope rents will go down because landlords will be able to build buildings that with cheaper debt. Lowering interest rates doesn't create inflation. It depends why interest rates are going down and how they're going down. So just lowering interest rates in and of itself does not increase inflation. So I don't think we're at risk of hyperinflation. No, I'll say this. We're not at risk of hyperinflation because the Fed is not creating huge amounts of money right now. It's just not. Hyperinflation, I don't know, 20, 30, 40%, 100%. That requires the printing presses to run pretty fast or the electronic money creation to happen really, really, really fast. And I'm not seeing that. I don't see that happening. So even if interest rates go down, I don't think inflation in and of itself is going to go up a lot. Inflation is high already. We're talking about price inflation, price increases. Prices going up at about 3%. That is because of whatever money printing is going on right now. And the fact that that has never really stopped. And some of the price increases might be result of tariffs, but tariffs don't increase overall price level. They only increase relative prices. But again, CPI only measures some prices. Inflation numbers only measure some prices. No, in other words, I don't think hyperinflation is a risk because I don't see anybody printing money like crazy. Lincoln, regime change in Iran would be the greatest event in my lifetime, but it seems unlikely given the regime has lasted a long time. But it's deteriorating, and the resentment of it is growing, and the willingness to stand up against it is growing. I would not be at all surprised if we saw the regime fall in the next 10 years, maybe even 5. Lincoln says, bonus super chat for $20. Thank you, Lincoln. I noticed that many on the right, that the ideal of masculinity is physical strength, which I always found foolish. To them, the ultra soldier is more a man than Jobs, Da Vinci, Edison. Yes, I think that's right. Because they don't, you see, in olden times, survival depended on, or it seemed that survival depended on physical ability. When war was everywhere, where you were threatened by armies and robbers and gangs, physical strength mattered. Physical ability, your ability to fight mattered. And you can still, and people still look for that. You can see that in all our heroes on TV and in the movies. They're all fighters. But in the modern world, I mean, this has always been true, but certainly in the modern world, it's not muscle that determines your success. It's not muscle that you must use in order to achieve your goals, to achieve your aims, or even to protect your family, or to provide for your family. What you need is the brains. What you need is self-esteem. What you need is the ability to go out there and shape the world. And that requires brains and character. And, that is what true masculinity is. It's the ability to use one's brains to and lead and move to change the physical world out there in providing for ourselves, in making our lives better. That's what real masculinity is. But that requires a shift from thinking about survival and thriving as requiring thinking rather than requiring muscle. eCiv97, thank you for the sticker. Really, really appreciate that. Thank you. We have now achieved our goal, 3-hour goal. Really appreciate that, guys. Normative Randroid, what's going on in Minnesota with Somali community and Trump removing TPS? Any truth to allegation of money laundering? I mean, it looks like they did do some money laundering. It looks like money was funneled to Al-Shabaab in Somalia, which is a terrorist organization. An Islamist terrorist organization. How much money is not clear. There's a lot of panic around this. How many Somalis were actually involved? When you say Somali community, how many of those, how much was it? There's a lot of, the right is very focused on the Somali community in Minneapolis because of, what's her name, the congresswoman who's from there. And they want to use it at every opportunity to discredit immigration. Remember, they're eating cats. Those were Somalis, I think, supposedly eating cats in Ohio. So they're easy to, they're black, so they look different. and some of them, and they're Muslim, some of them are Islamist, a minority, but some of them are. So it's easy to make them the mascot of immigrants. So the right has an incentive to bring that out. There was also some tribalism in the recent mayor election in Minnesota. I mean, Somali community is pretty big in Minnesota. They're pretty significant. Okay, Lincoln has a 4-part question. Let's go through this. I often joke with my parents and friends that we can tell Iran has actually become a free country when there is a Taylor Swift concert in Iran. Gen Z might find that happening to be insane, but in 1991, there was a huge rock band headlined by Metallica that had over 1 million people attend. In 1991, where? I don't know where that was. You're not saying where that was. If within 2 years of the Berlin Wall falling, American rock bands, this is in Berlin, rock bands with long hair and T-shirts can perform in Moscow to many young people. It's not insane to assume that even more popular American pop star like Taylor Swift could perform one of her concerts with a hijab, without a hijab in a free Iran. I agree, absolutely. I think it is a good sign. It would be a sign of the Iranian regime falling. Iran in the 70s, and even Iranians in the 80s followed quite a bit kind of pop music and rock music from the West. I mean, I like Krista Berg, who was a singer, I think an Irish singer in the 80s. And I went to a concert of his in Orange County. He came to Orange County a few years ago to sing. And 95% of the audience were Iranians who used to listen to him in Iran in the 1980s. It was so bizarre. I really felt I was in an alternative universe. Here was a rock concert, pop concert, and my wife and I were there, and the whole auditorium was filled with Iranians. All right, Mauricia something, Anderson. Any thoughts on Takechi's comment to protect Taiwan's military against China and China's response to threaten her and take it to the UN? Yeah, I talked about it a little bit last week. I was going to add it, but I had already 8 topics. But yeah, I mean, Japan is really standing up to China. It said that it would consider intervening if the Chinese went after Taiwan. And the Chinese flipped out over this. They're boycotting Japanese seafood. They're boycotting Japanese tourism. They're threatening the Japan. They're taking it to the UN. The Japanese now, they just announced they're moving missiles, medium-range ground-to-air missiles, to an island, a Japanese island, really, 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 really close to Taiwan, which would have massive strategic importance if the Chinese try to invade Taiwan. So good for her. She's standing up to Chinese, to China. Japan is like Europe. Japan to Taiwan is like Europe is to Ukraine. And she realizes that to avoid a war like Ukraine, the more signaling they do, the more they commit to being on the side of Taiwan, the more they're likely to avoid a Chinese invasion. So good for Takaichi. All right, Lincoln says, Trump 47, Trump 45's not so greatest hits. I'm not sure I understand that one. Sorry. All right, let's see. All right, thank you guys for all your support for the Thanksgiving show. So we'll probably do that. Robert, thank you. Thank you, guys. And then this is, I think, is the last question. Michael, appropriately for Michael. Is individualism having difficulty coming into fashion because Americans are more irrational and altruistic than ever before? Maybe. I mean, I think certainly irrational, maybe they're, and probably altruistic as well. I think they're unthinking. I think that's the key, more than ever before. But there was also, American history is interesting. There are periods where America had religious revivals, and they somehow survived all that. And I think they survived because the American sense of life kept them going. I think the individualism is having a particularly difficult time right now because the sense of life that connected them to individualism, that spirit that was American, that somehow passed from generation to generation, maybe diluted, but passed, in spite of the bad philosophy, I think is really dying. As again, Leonard Peikoff said in America versus Americans, suddenly was dying in the 2000s and maybe is dead by now. And I think to a large extent Trump's election represents that. So that's what's it's the American sense of life is just not there. Just not there. All right, guys, have a great rest of your week. I will see you tomorrow. The rest of the week, we will have shows. I will have a show on Thanksgiving. I think you've convinced me. So we will have shows all week and Saturday and Sunday. We're going to go all out this week. Thank you. You did really well. We made our goal for the third hour. So I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hopefully we'll do that every day this week to make up for the fact that I didn't have shows and just to achieve our goals is always a good thing. Yeah, I will see you tomorrow. Probably, I'm not sure, either 2 or 3 p.m. East Coast time. Let's see, tomorrow is 2 p.m. East Coast time tomorrow. See you then, everybody. Bye.